Thank you, Mark. How you doing, Patriots? All right, it's a beautiful day. I want to give you a couple of civics lessons. I know that's not what you expect, but it's important. But first, again, I am Judge Michael Warren. I'm from the Oakland County Circuit Court, and I'm running for Supreme Court. And a lot of people get confused about how this election works. I need to explain it to you. We do not go through a primary. We are nominated by party conventions. And I've been endorsed in March, and I will be ratified in August, and I will be on the November ballot. But I will not have a Republican designation next to my name. So if you vote straight ticket for the Republican Party, or for any party, you're going to miss the Supreme Court race. I'm going to explain in a minute why that's a terrible thing to not vote for. But there's a huge drop-off because of that confusion. So if everybody that votes for Mike Rogers votes for Mike Warren, I win. So your job is to tell all your friends and family and neighbors, strangers, people that are parking cars next to you, whatever, that don't forget to flip the ballot and vote for Michael Warren for Supreme Court. All right, I'll take that applause. Now, I'm running because we have a 6-1 unbalanced Supreme Court. The 6 are Democrat nominated. There's one rule of law justice, Brian Zara, who's fending 6 people off, and he needs help. We also have a Supreme Court that is inexperienced. 5 of the 7 justices were never judges before they got on the Supreme Court. Yeah. And when I say that, people's eyes pop and their jaws drop because they say, how can that be? Well, that's where we are. We have a 5 to 7, don't understand, we're never judges. And so even if you're not concerned about the partisan issues, you should be concerned about the fact that what's happening is that they're making decisions, administrative rules, procedures, judicial tenure commission, rules of evidence, jury instructions are all being done by people that haven't served on a bench before. And that's very problematic. It's also problematic because I believe that the proper role of a justice is not to legislate from the bench. Our job is to be in what the founders believed is that the first branch of government is the legislative branch, and they pass the law. The second branch of government is the executive branch. They enforce the law. And then the final branch, the third branch, is supposed to be the weakest. And all we do as judges is interpret the law and apply it in particular controversies. So it's not our role to say, you know what, I see this legislation, I don't really think that's smart. I don't know why it's written that way. I'm going to strike that line out or ignore it. Or, there really ought to be a right that isn't listed in the Constitution, so we're just going to fabricate one. And we've seen that has been a problem over the course of many years. And so my job is to help retake a rule of law court. Because you can get the gubernatorial candidate you want. Okay? It could be John James, it could be Perry Johnson, it could be Mike Cox, or some other candidate. And you can get the state legislature you want, the House and the Senate. But it doesn't matter if the 6-1 Supreme Court decides they don't like the legislation that's being passed by the people that you voted for. That's a usurpation of your ability to self-govern. The final say of all of your rights, free exercise of religion, free speech, the right to bear arms, rest in the courts. So we need people that are dedicated to the courts for their proper role, that understand the proper role of the courts. Second civics lesson. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That when any form of government becomes obstructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to establish new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such forms of them so seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. You can't applaud the Declaration of Independence on its 250th anniversary. Or not. Okay, there we go. Those words from the Declaration of Independence were revolutionary in 1776. They remain revolutionary today. And despite the controversy about America and our role on the world stage, we've always been controversial on the world stage. We remain a beacon of hope, a torch of liberty for billions of people across the world. Most people live in countries where they wish their country was more like ours. Look at all the people going to Buc-ee's. Some people are so frustrated with their country, they'd rather just leave here and see what happened during the last presidential administration. And some people hate us so much they're willing to blow themselves up just to hurt our innocent civilians. And I don't have to tell you about terrorism. Whether they love us or hate us, they're all motivated by those founding first principles articulated in our Declaration of Independence and embedded in our Constitution. The rule of law, unalienable rights, limited government, the social compact, equality, and the right to alter or abolish an oppressive government. That's what makes America America. It is not, as fun as it might be, watching Taylor Swift and her fiancé. It is not as fun as it might be watching the Michigan Wolverines capture that national championship. It's certainly not the Detroit Red Wings. It's those founding first principles articulated in our Declaration of Independence and embedded in our Constitution. And we need jurists on the highest level of our state that love the Declaration, that are willing to accept its founding principles, ensure that those founding principles, as embedded in our Constitution, are enforced. I love the Declaration so much, I wrote this book, The Revolutionary Words That Forged America, the definitive guide to the Declaration of Independence. And you can see it's kind of thick because I took this project very seriously. A book like that goes through the Declaration line by line, sometimes word by word, and there hasn't been a book like this since about 125 years ago. It wasn't done all that well. So now I said, the Declaration deserves a piece of real scholarship. So I undertook that. It just got published in April. Autographed copies over there for a mere $30. Amazon as well, and 5 golden stars are great. But it talks about, for example, unalienable rights. Well, what does that mean? That means our rights come from the Creator, from God, from nature's law, right? Not from the government. There's whole swaths of our population who thinks, I can only do something if the government allows me to do it. No. The purpose of government is to protect your unalienable rights, not to make you a servant of the government. Okay. Can somebody give me, here we get a little interactive now, anybody tell me why we declared independence from the greatest empire the world had ever seen at the time? Why did we do it? Religious freedom, that's kind of a half-right answer. Okay. No taxation without representation. Okay. I'll give you a full point for that. Any others? There's a ton of others listed. There are 28 grievances. Okay, so I'm going to highlight a couple. But there's a chapter regarding each grievance in this book. The very first grievance, really interesting. It says the king would not assent to the laws of the colonist. What does that mean? Well, it used to be when the colonists all had legislatures, and when they passed the law, though, the legislation did not become effective until the king said, okay, I concede, I agree with this, assenting. So here's a great, so there were a lot of things, hundreds of laws which the king refused to approve, completely subverting our ability to rule ourselves. There were some colonies where to get a divorce, you had to have a piece of legislation. And he said, no, the marriage is sacred. I'm not going to allow any divorces. So there were no divorces. There are a whole bunch of other things I won't go through, but one is really interesting. Remember, the Declaration is drafted by Thomas Jefferson. He's from Virginia. He's a slaveholder. But Virginia and other colonial legislatures wanted to ban the slave trade. So they raised taxes on the slave trade. And the king said, no, I actually like the slave trade. It's very lucrative to England. So he refused to allow them to trade the slave trade out of existence, or tax the slave trade out of existence. The irony of Thomas Jefferson attacking the king for supporting the slave trade is only could be in reality, right? I bet you were never taught that. The 16th grievance is the suppression of the right to the jury. This strikes to me because I've tried over 400 jury trials. By the way, I have more trial experience than the entire Supreme Court put together because 5 of the 7 judges were never judges until they got on the Supreme Court. So I've tried over 400 jury trials, more than the entire Supreme Court put together times 3 in connection with how many years they've been on the bench, okay? So in those 400 jury trials, what happened in the colonial days, if you got accused of a crime, you were supposed to be tried by a jury of your peers. It protects from government oppression and ensures that the prosecutor has the proofs. The king said, no, we're going to pass the Tax Act, the Stamp Act, the Boston Port Bill, a bunch of other oppressive acts, and we're going to have them enforced by courts that don't have juries. In fact, those courts are going to be in Halifax, Canada, or in London, England. And we're going to ship your criminals or your defendants overseas. And the judges were appointed by the king and served at his pleasure, which means if the king didn't like his decisions, he could fire them. Imagine if Governor Whitmer could fire every judge she didn't agree with. Okay? And they could find you guilty of eating and not looking at the judge while he's giving a lecture, and then take all of his property and then sell it. And then the judge would get a cut of the proceeds. A very corrupt system of justice. So that was one of the leading reasons why we declared independence. John Adams wrote that of all the offenses of the British, the worst, even worse than taxation without representation, was the suppression of the right to the jury. So we've protected that in our Bill of Rights in the federal system and our Declaration of Rights in our Michigan Constitution, which I bet you've never learned about. So there's a lot of great knowledge in this book. But we need people that understand those things, because the Constitution is the answer, the antidote to all the grievances. So for every grievance, all 28, there's some response in the in the Constitution. There's like protecting the right to the jury, or like having the ability to override the president's veto. And if the president doesn't act, it comes into effect. We're starting to learn about that right now in this housing thing, right? If President Trump just decides not to sign the legislation, it becomes law after 10 days. They cured that grievance. So to understand the Constitution, you need to understand the Declaration. The bottom line is we have a lot at stake in November. Our country is at a crisis point. The only way that we can meet this challenge is when we have people like you, the salt of the earth, that are coming here on a beautiful Saturday evening and spending it with Mark Vorton and Michigan Matters to show your patriotism and love of country. And if you folks can, yes, applaud yourselves, exactly. A lot of other people that are doing a whole bunch of other things, right? But you're here because you know that a tireless, small, irate minority can change the world. In fact, as Samuel Adams said, it's the only thing that's ever changed the world. The time is now for us to breach the gap and save our country. I don't know about you, but I'm a fight like hell every single day. God bless you. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing I have to say. Patriot Week was started by my daughter when she pounded the table as a 10-year-old and demanded a new celebration for America. It goes from September 11th to September 17th. It's been unanimously recognized by the U.S. Senate. We are sending reenactors into high schools this year. If you are interested, I have flyers for Patriot Week. I have free Declaration of Independences and Constitutions and all my campaign literature. Okay, now the commercial's over. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America. I don't know. Am I accepting questions?
What would you say to people who are saying that they will not vote because America is just a corporation?
Okay, the question was, what do we say to people that say don't vote because America is just a corporation? I say baloney. Our votes count. They count more now than ever. And so please get out there and vote. Thank you.